The ship Starweaver floated dead in space. It had been 6 months since the last engine fired. 6 months since the crew had any hope of going home. The beautiful crystal walls that once glowed with soft blue light were now dark and cold. Captain Veltar stood in the main control room, looking out at the endless black space through the front window. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds, but they were all too far away to help. Her people were dying, and she could do nothing to stop it. The Zephyrians were proud of their ships. For thousands of years they had built vessels powered by living crystals. These crystals grew like plants and could channel energy in ways that seemed like magic. The crystals were everything to them. They powered the lights, the air makers, the water cleaners, and the engines that moved the ship through space. But now the main crystal was broken, not just damaged, but completely shattered. Without it, the Starweaver was just a metal shell floating in the void. The smaller crystals throughout the ship were dying one by one, like flowers without water. Dr. Kinnis walked into the control room. She was the ship's science officer and Veltar's oldest friend. Her normally bright green skin looked pale and sick. The failing air system was slowly poisoning them all. "How long do we have?" Veltar asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad. Kinnis checked her data pad. The numbers on it flickered as the power got weaker. 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we shut down all non-important systems. The air recyclers are working at 30% power. The water makers stopped completely yesterday. Veltar nodded. She had expected this. Have the crew finished their messages home? Yes, Captain. All 12 crew members have recorded their final words to their families. The messages are stored in the emergency beacon. When it's over, the beacon will send them automatically. The Zephyrian way was to accept death with peace and honor. For 3,000 years, her people had faced the end of life with calm dignity. They did not fight against fate. They did not scream or cry or rage against the darkness. They simply prepared their souls and waited for the final moment. But Veltar felt different this time. Maybe it was because she was so young for a captain, only 200 years old. Maybe it was because they had been so close to making a great discovery before the crystal broke. They had found evidence of new life in this empty part of space, life that could change everything they knew about the galaxy. Now that discovery would die with them. The ship shook slightly. Not from engines, since those were dead, but from the small asteroid that had hit them an hour ago. The shields were down, so even tiny rocks could damage the hull. Soon the ship would start breaking apart. "Captain," called Engineer Zixon from his station, "I'm reading something strange on the long-range sensors." Veltar and Kinnis moved to his station. The engineer was young, barely adult by Zephyrian standards. His purple skin showed the dark lines that appeared when their people were stressed. "What is it?" Veltar asked. Zixon pointed at his screen. The display was fuzzy and kept going in and out, but there was definitely something there. "It's a ship, Captain, moving toward us." Kinnis leaned closer to look. "That's impossible. We're in the middle of nowhere. The nearest Zephyrian world is 3 months away at full speed. No one even knows we're here." "I know it sounds crazy," Zixon said, "but the readings are clear. It's definitely a ship. And Captain, it's not one of ours." Veltar felt her hearts skip a beat. Zephyrians had 2 hearts, and right now both of them were racing. "Not one of ours? You mean an alien ship?" Kinnis whispered. "After all these years of searching, we finally make contact with another species. And it happens when we're about to die. The three of them stared at the screen. The ship was still very far away, but it was definitely getting closer. The sensors showed it was much smaller than the Star Weaver, and it seemed to be made of metal, instead of the crystal and metal mix that Zephyrians used. "How long until it reaches us?" Veltar asked. Zixon did some quick math in his head. "At its current speed, maybe 18 hours. 18 hours, Veltar repeated. "We might actually live to see first contact with an alien species." But even as she said it, she wondered what would happen. Would these aliens be friendly? Would they even be able to talk to each other? And most importantly, would they help? Or would they just watch the Zephyrians die? "Should we try to contact them?" Kines asked. Veltar thought about it. Their communication system was running on backup power and might not work much longer, but this could be the most important moment in Zephyrian history. How could they not try? "Yes," she decided. "Zixon, prepare a message. Use the universal mathematical signals we developed for first contact. Tell them who we are and that we need help." As Zixon worked to send the message, Veltar looked out at the stars again. For the first time in months, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Maybe they would die in this cold, empty place, but maybe, just maybe, they would live to see tomorrow. The alien ship kept coming closer. Soon they would know which it would be. Captain Jake Miller was drinking his third cup of coffee when the ship's computer started beeping. The sound was loud and annoying, the kind that meant something important was happening. Jake put down his cup and walked to the main control panel of the Lucky Strike. The Lucky Strike was not a beautiful ship. It was a cargo hauler, built for carrying supplies between the outer colonies and Earth. The hull was covered in patches where asteroids had hit it. The inside was cramped and smelled like machine oil and old coffee. But it was Jake's ship, and he loved it. "What's the problem now?" Jake asked the computer. "Captain, I am detecting a distress signal," the computer replied in its calm voice. "The signal is coming from coordinates 47.2 by 15.8 by 9.1. Jake looked at the star chart on his screen. Those coordinates were in the middle of empty space, far from any known shipping lanes. "Are you sure? There's nothing out there." "I am certain, Captain. The signal is weak but clear. It appears to be some kind of mathematical sequence." Jake scratched his head. He had been flying cargo ships for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like this. "Lisa, get up here!" Lisa Park was the ship's engineer. She was small and tough, with grease under her fingernails and a brain that could fix anything. She came running up from the engine room, wiping her hands on a dirty rag. "What's wrong, Jake? Is something broken again?" "Listen to this," Jake said. He played the signal through the ship's speakers. It was a series of beeps and pauses that seemed to follow some kind of pattern. Lisa listened carefully. She had studied math in college before she became an engineer. "Those are prime numbers," she said after a minute. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Someone is sending out prime numbers in sequence. "But who?" Jake asked. "And from where?" Sam Carter, the ship's radio operator, joined them in the control room. Sam was young and excited about everything, especially new technology. "Captain, I've been trying to trace the signal. It's coming from about 6 hours away at full speed." 6 hours away from what? Jake asked. "From nothing," Sam said. "There's no planet, no station, no shipping lane, just empty space." Jake thought about it. The Lucky Strike was carrying medical supplies to the Mars colonies. The cargo was important but not urgent. They had plenty of time to make a small detour. "Lisa, how are our supplies?" he asked. "We have enough food for 2 weeks, air for 3 weeks, and fuel for a month," Lisa replied. "Why?" "Because we're going to check this out," Jake decided. "Someone is out there sending for help, and we can't just ignore that." Tony Walsh, the ship's mechanic, had been listening from the doorway. He was quiet most of the time, but he always spoke up when he thought something was dangerous. "Jake, what if it's a trap? What if pirates are using a fake distress signal to lure ships?" Jake had thought about that too. "Then we'll be very careful. But Tony, what if it's real? What if someone is dying out there and we're the only ones who can help them?" Lisa nodded. "Jake's right. We can't leave people to die in space." Sam was already working at his station. "I'm setting course for the signal source. We should be there in about 6 hours." As the Lucky Strike changed direction and headed toward the mysterious signal, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was going to be the strangest day of his life. 4 hours later, their sensors picked up something that made no sense. There was definitely a ship at the source of the signal, but it wasn't like any ship they had ever seen. It was huge, maybe 3 times the size of the Lucky Strike, and it seemed to be made of some kind of crystal material. "That's impossible," Lisa said, staring at the readings. "Ships can't be made of crystal. Crystal breaks too easily." "Well, this one is," Jake replied. "And look at this. It's not moving at all. No engine heat, no power readings. That ship is dead in space." Sam had been working on decoding more of the signal. "Captain, I think I figured out what they're trying to say. After the prime numbers, they started sending pictures. Simple ones like circles and squares. Then they sent a picture of their ship, and then a picture of us." "Us?" Jake asked. "Well, our ship. They somehow detected us and drew a picture of the Lucky Strike. They know we're here." As they got closer, they could see the alien ship more clearly. It was beautiful in a strange way, with curved lines and surfaces that seemed to glow softly. But many of the glowing parts were dark now, and the ship looked damaged. "They're definitely in trouble," Lisa observed. "Look at those power readings. Whatever keeps that ship running is barely working." Jake made his decision. "Sam, try to contact them. Use the same mathematical signals they used. Let them know we want to help." For the next 2 hours, Sam worked on establishing communication. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where you didn't know what the finished picture was supposed to look like. The aliens sent math, so Sam sent back math. They sent simple pictures, so he sent simple pictures back. Finally, Sam managed to establish basic communication. The aliens sent a picture of their ship with red marks showing damage. Then they sent numbers that seemed to indicate time running out. The message was clear. They were dying and needed help soon. "Can we dock with them?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa studied the alien ship design. "I don't think so. Their docking ports don't match ours, but I might be able to modify our airlocks to connect with theirs." "Do it," Jake ordered. "Tony, Sam, start gathering every spare part and tool we have. We're going to try to fix an alien spaceship." Tony looked worried. "Jake, we don't know anything about their technology. How can we fix something we don't understand?" Jake grinned. "Tony, I once fixed a broken life support system using parts from a coffee machine and some duct tape. Different doesn't mean impossible." As the Lucky Strike moved closer to the alien ship, Jake wondered what they would find inside. Were the aliens friendly? Could they even breathe the same air? Would they be able to help them, or would they just be adding more people to a death trap? But Jake knew one thing for certain. They had to try. That's what humans did. When someone needed help, you didn't ask questions first. You just helped. Lisa Park stood in the airlock between the two ships, carrying a toolbox that looked like it belonged in a junkyard. Behind her, Tony Walsh pushed a cart full of spare parts, cables, and equipment that Jake had collected from all over the Lucky Strike. To human eyes, it looked like useful repair materials. To alien eyes, it was about to look like complete chaos. The airlock door opened, and Lisa got her first look at the inside of an alien spaceship. The walls were made of some kind, of crystal that had once glowed with soft light, but now most of it was dark. The air felt different, thinner and somehow cleaner than what she was used to. And standing in front of her was something that definitely wasn't human. Captain Veltar was tall and graceful, with green skin and large eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a uniform made of material that seemed to shift colors as she moved. Behind her stood Dr. Kinnis and Engineer Zixon, both looking curious and worried at the same time. "Welcome to our ship," Veltar said through the translation device Sam had helped them build. Her voice sounded musical, even through the electronic translator. "We are grateful that you came to help us, though I fear there is little you can do." Lisa looked around at the crystal technology surrounding them. Everything was smooth and curved, with no visible joints or connections. It was beautiful, but it was also completely different from anything she had ever worked with. "Show me. What's broken?" she said simply. Dr. Kinnis led them deeper into the ship, to a large room at the center. In the middle of the room stood what had once been a massive crystal formation, reaching from floor to ceiling. Now it was shattered into thousands of pieces, dark and lifeless. "This is our primary power crystal," Kinnis explained. "It grows over many years and learns to channel energy through living pathways. When it broke, it took our entire power grid with it. Without it, we cannot run life support, engines, or any other systems." Lisa walked around the broken crystal, studying it carefully. Tony came up beside her, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered. "How does a rock generate power?" "It's not exactly a rock," Kinnis said, having overheard. "The crystals are living organisms that convert cosmic radiation into usable energy. They grow neural networks that learn to optimize power distribution throughout the ship." Lisa nodded as if this made perfect sense, even though it didn't. "Okay, so you need power to run your life support. We can work with that." She opened her toolbox and started pulling out equipment. First came the portable power cells they used for emergency repairs. Then came rolls of electrical cable, connection adapters, and her favorite tool, a roll of duct tape. The Zephyrians watched in fascination and growing horror as Lisa began her work. Instead of trying to repair the crystal, she completely ignored it. She started running cables from her power cells directly to the ship's life support systems. "What are you doing?" Zixon asked, his voice rising in panic. "You cannot simply bypass the primary power distribution network. The energy flows will be completely unregulated." "You're right," Lisa agreed cheerfully, connecting a human battery to an alien air recycler with a piece of wire and some tape. "It's going to be messy, but messy and working is better than elegant and dead." Tony was on the other side of the room, doing something that made Dr. Kinnis gasp in shock. He had opened an access panel and was crawling inside the wall, dragging cables behind him. Sparks flew as he connected human technology to alien systems using methods that violated every safety protocol either species had ever written. "Your companion is inside the power conduits while they are active," Kinnis exclaimed. "He could be electrocuted." "Yeah, probably," Lisa replied, not looking up from her work. Tony, you okay in there? I'm fine, came Tony's muffled voice from inside the wall. Though I think I just accidentally turned on your gravity in the bathroom. Someone might want to check that. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand that humans had a very different relationship with safety than they did. When Zixon asked about proper procedures for power system integration, Lisa's response was to hand him a piece of duct tape and say, "Hold this wire here and don't let go." "But what if something goes wrong?" Zixon asked. "Then we'll fix it," Lisa said. "That's what we do." As the hours passed, the alien ship began to transform. Human cables snaked along the elegant crystal walls like technological vines. Battery packs were duct-taped to surfaces that had never been designed to hold them. Warning lights that had been dark for months began to flicker back to life. Dr. Kinnes followed Lisa around, taking notes on everything she did. "Your methods are completely contrary to all known engineering principles," she observed. "Yeah, I get that a lot," Lisa replied, using a screwdriver to adjust something that was definitely not designed to be adjusted with a screwdriver. "The thing is, engineering principles are great when you have time and the right parts. When people are dying, you use what you have and make it work." The language barrier led to some interesting moments. When Jake came over from the Lucky Strike to check on progress, he asked Lisa if she needed that doohickey that connects to the thingamajig. The translator, trying to be helpful, rendered this as the sacred device that maintains cosmic harmony. Psati. Veltar spent several minutes trying to understand what sacred devices the humans worshipped, before Jake explained that doohickey just meant that thing over there. By the end of the day, the hybrid power system was running. It wasn't pretty and it definitely wasn't elegant, but the lights were on and the air was breathable. The Zephyrian ship looked like it had been attacked by a mad scientist, with human technology grafted onto alien systems in ways that should have been impossible. "It actually works," Zixon said in amazement, looking at his power readings. "The efficiency is terrible and the safety margins are non-existent, but it works." "Sometimes that's enough," Lisa said, wiping grease off her hands. "You folks should be able to make it home now." Dr. Kinnes was still taking notes. "I must document this for our scientists. Your species has a completely different approach to problem solving. Where we see obstacles, you see opportunities for improvisation." "We see things that need fixing," Tony said, crawling out of the wall with his hair standing up from static electricity. "And we fix them." As the two crews stood in the newly lit alien ship, surrounded by the chaotic mix of crystal technology and human engineering, Captain Veltar realized something important. Her people had been rescued not by superior technology or advanced science, but by a species that simply refused to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. It was a lesson that would change both civilizations forever. Over the next 2 days, as Lisa and Tony worked to make the repairs more stable, the two crews began to learn about each other. The differences between humans and Zephyrians were bigger than anyone had expected. Captain Veltar watched in amazement as Jake crawled under a control panel that was sparking with electricity. "Your species has no sense of self-preservation," she observed, her translator making her musical voice sound worried. "Sure we do," Jake replied, his voice muffled because his head was inside an alien computer. "We just think differently about what's dangerous. This little bit of electricity isn't going to kill me. On my world, we would shut down all power before attempting such repairs," Veltar explained. "Yeah, but then your life support would stop working while we fixed it," Jake said, backing out of the panel with a satisfied grin. Sometimes you have to choose between safe and smart. Dr. Kines had become fascinated with human problem-solving methods. She followed Lisa around with a data pad, recording everything. "Explain to me again why you hit the power coupling with a hammer," she asked. "It's called percussive maintenance," Lisa explained, giving another component a gentle tap with her wrench. "Sometimes things get stuck, and a little encouragement helps them remember how to work." "But how do you know how hard to hit it? What if you damage it further?" Lisa shrugged. "You start gentle and work your way up. If hitting it breaks it, it was already broken anyway." This concept seemed to blow Kinnis's mind. On Zephyrian worlds, technology was treated with careful respect. Their crystal-based systems were grown rather than built, and they required patience and gentle care. The idea of hitting something to make it work was completely foreign to them. Meanwhile, the humans were learning about Zephyrian culture. Sam Carter spent hours talking with Zixon about their history and beliefs. The Zephyrians were an old race, with thousands of years of civilization behind them. They valued wisdom, patience, and acceptance of natural order. "When our ship was dying, we prepared for death with dignity," Zixon explained. "It is the Zephyrian way to accept fate when it cannot be changed." "But what if fate can be changed?" Sam asked. "What if there's always another way to solve a problem?" Zixon considered this. "Your people believe that any problem can be solved?" "We believe it's worth trying," Sam replied, "even when everyone says it's impossible." The language differences created some funny moments. When Tony asked Jake to pass me that what's-is with the spinny bits, the translator worked overtime trying to figure out what a what's-is was. Eventually, the Zephyrians learned that humans had dozens of words for that thing I need but don't know the name of. The cultural exchange went both ways. The humans were impressed by Zephyrian scientific knowledge. Their understanding of energy and biology was far beyond anything Earth had achieved, but they were frustrated by Zephyrian caution. "You mean you've known about faster-than-light travel for 300 years, but you haven't tried it because it might be dangerous?" Lisa asked in disbelief. "The energy requirements are enormous," Dr. Kinnis explained. "The chances of success are only 67%. Such a risk is not acceptable." 67%? Lisa laughed. "Lady, I've fixed engines with worse odds than that. Sometimes you just have to try." The Zephyrians were equally surprised by human attitudes toward risk. When Jake mentioned that humans had sent people to their moon using technology that was less advanced than a modern calculator, Captain Veltar nearly fainted. "You launched your people into space with primitive computers?" she asked. "Well, we also brought calculators as backup," Jake said. "Plus some really smart people with slide rules." "What are slide rules?" "Sticks with numbers on them." Veltar stared at him for a long moment. "Your species is completely insane." "Yeah, probably," Jake agreed cheerfully. "But we get things done." The real breakthrough came when Dr. Kinnis watched Tony fix a broken water recycler. The alien system had been designed to process water through a complex crystal matrix that purified it on a molecular level. When the crystal broke, the Zephyrians had assumed the recycler was useless. Tony took one look at it and said, "This is just a fancy water filter." Then he proceeded to bypass the crystal completely, routing the water through a series of human-made filters that he built from spare parts. "It won't be as pure as your system," he admitted, "but it'll be clean enough to drink." Kinnis tested the water with her instruments. "This is actually quite good. Not as efficient as our method, but it works. Sometimes good enough is good. Enough, Tony said. That phrase, good enough is good enough, became a point of discussion between the two species. Zephyrians strived for perfection in everything they did. They would spend years developing the ideal solution to a problem. Humans, it seemed, were willing to accept solutions that were just good enough to work. But don't you want to make things better? Zixon asked. Of course, Lisa replied. But first you make them work. Then you make them better. You can't improve something that doesn't exist. By the third day, the alien ship was running well enough to travel. The hybrid power system was stable, the life support was working, and the engines could push them home at half speed. It would take longer than normal, but they would make it. As the two crews prepared to part ways, Captain Veltar tried to understand what had happened. "Why did you help us?" she asked Jake. "We are strangers. We have nothing to offer you in return." Jake looked genuinely confused by the question. "You were dying. That's not a business deal. That's just what decent people do. But surely you expect some form of payment? Some advantage for your people?" "Lady, the only payment I want is knowing that you folks made it home safe," Jake said. "That's enough for me." Dr. Kinnis had been listening to this conversation with great interest. "Captain Miller, would you be willing to share your navigation data with us? We would like to know more about your people and your worlds." "Sure thing," Jake replied. "Sam, give them our star charts and communication frequencies. Maybe we can be neighbors." As the two ships prepared to separate, both crews knew that something important had happened. The Zephyrians had learned that impossible was just another word for hasn't been tried yet. The humans had learned that there were other ways of thinking about problems, and that sometimes patience and wisdom were just as valuable as determination and creativity. But most importantly, both species had learned that help could come from the most unexpected places, and that kindness was universal, even between strangers from different worlds. 3 days after first contact, the Star Weaver was ready to go home. The ship looked very different from when the humans had first arrived. Human cables and power boxes were attached to the crystal walls like strange metal plants. Warning signs, in both languages, covered jury-rigged connections. The elegant alien ship now looked like it had been repaired by someone who cared more about function than beauty. But it was alive. The lights worked, the air was clean, and the engines hummed with power. Dr. Kinnis ran one final check of all systems while Captain Veltar prepared for departure. "All systems are operating within acceptable parameters," Kinnis reported. "The human modifications are crude but effective. We can reach home in 6 weeks at current power levels." Captain Jake Miller floated in the airlock between the two ships, getting ready to say goodbye. Behind him, Lisa Park was making final adjustments to the power connections, while Tony Walsh explained to Zixon how to maintain the hybrid systems. "Remember," Tony was saying, "if the power fluctuates, just give the main coupling a good whack with something heavy. Not too hard, just firm. And if the recycler starts making funny noises, that's normal. It's supposed to sound like that." Zixon was taking careful notes. "Hit the coupling. Funny noises are normal. Your maintenance procedures are very informal." "They work, though," Tony grinned. "That's what matters." Sam Carter had spent the morning working with the Zephyrians to establish long-range communication protocols. Now both ships could stay in contact across vast distances of space. It was the beginning of something bigger than either species had imagined. "We've programmed our communication frequencies into your system," Sam explained to Veltar. You can reach us anytime, and we've given you the coordinates of our major colonies and trade routes." Captain Veltar accepted the data with something approaching amazement. 3 days ago, her people had been alone in the universe, dying in the darkness. Now they had allies among the stars, and a whole new view of what was possible. "Captain Miller," she said formally, "the Zephyrian people will remember what you have done here. You saved our lives when you had no reason to help us. How can we repay such a debt?" Jake scratched his head. "Ma'am, you don't owe us anything, but if you really want to do something for us, just pass the word along. Tell other folks out there that humans are friendly. Maybe next time one of our ships breaks down, someone will stop to help us." Dr. Kinnis stepped forward with a small crystal device in her hands. "Captain, this is a gift from our people to yours. It is a data crystal containing our scientific knowledge of energy manipulation and biological engineering. Perhaps your scientists can find it useful." Jake accepted the crystal carefully. "This is incredible. Our scientists are going to love this." "Thank you." "It is we who should thank you," Kinnis replied. "You have taught us something more valuable than any technology. You have shown us that the impossible is just a problem waiting for the right solution." Lisa finished her final checks and came over to join the group. "You folks should be all set. The system isn't pretty, but it'll get you home. And Kinnis, remember what I showed you about backup power routing? If the main system fails, you can switch to manual control." "I will remember," Kinnis promised. "Lisa Park, you have changed how I think about engineering. Sometimes the best solution is not the most elegant one." As the humans prepared to return to their own ship, Tony had one last piece of advice for the Zephyrians. "Don't be afraid to experiment," he told them. "Your technology is amazing, but it could be even better if you weren't so worried about breaking it. Sometimes you have to break a few things to learn how they really work." The two crews gathered in the airlock for final farewells. It was an awkward moment. How do you say goodbye to people from another species who had saved your life? Captain Veltar solved the problem by extending her hand to Jake in the human gesture of friendship she had learned. "Until we meet again, Jake Miller. The stars are safer with humans like you traveling them." Jake shook her hand warmly. "Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, if you ever need help again, just send a signal. Somebody will come." As the humans returned to the Lucky Strike, both crews prepared for departure. The ships slowly separated, and for a moment they hung in space together, the elegant crystal vessel and the patched-up cargo hauler that had saved it. Then the Star Weaver fired its engines and began the long journey home to Zephyrian space. Jake watched it go until it was just another star in the darkness. "That was something else," Lisa said, joining him at the observation window. "I've never worked on anything like that before." "Think we'll see them again?" Sam asked. "Oh, we'll definitely see them again," Jake replied. "And probably sooner than we think. Word's going to spread about this. Other species are going to hear that humans don't leave people to die in space." He was right. 6 months later, Captain Veltar stood before the Zephyrian High Council, delivering her report on first contact with humanity. The crystal chamber was filled with the greatest minds of her civilization, all waiting to hear about the strange aliens who had saved her ship. "Describe these humans in one word," requested the first counselor. Veltar thought about Jake Miller crawling into sparking electrical systems without hesitation. She remembered Lisa Park building impossible solutions from spare parts and duct tape. She thought about Tony Walsh hitting alien technology with a hammer until it worked, and Sam Carter refusing to give up on communication even when it seemed hopeless. "Unstoppable," she said finally. "They are completely, utterly unstoppable." The word spread through Zephyrian space like wildfire. Soon other species heard the story. The crazy aliens who fixed things with tape and hammers. The species that didn't know when to quit. The people who would help complete strangers just because it was the right thing to do. Jake Miller continued his cargo runs, but now he carried something extra. The navigation data the Zephyrians had given him opened up new trade routes to parts of the galaxy that humans had never seen. Every few weeks, his ship would encounter vessels from new species, all curious about the humans they had heard about. Some wanted to trade, some wanted to learn human engineering techniques, and some, inevitably, needed help with problems that seemed impossible to solve. Jake helped them all. It's what humans did. Dr. Kines published her notes on human problem-solving methods, and they became required reading in Zephyrian engineering schools. The concept of percussive maintenance was added to their technical manuals, along with the human phrase that had started it all. Different doesn't mean impossible. Years later, when historians looked back on first contact between humans and Zephyrians, they would mark it as the moment when the galaxy learned something important about the species from the small blue planet. They weren't the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but they were the ones who showed up when you needed help. And in a vast, cold universe, that made all the difference.